Hi guys, welcome back to Scott Family Homestead. Today we are working on a big project, kind of a time-sensitive project, and that is clearing out our personal freezer. If you've been following us for a while, you know that we are growing a ton of pigs, and we have a steer going to the butcher, and so we're going to have this huge influx of meat. Actually, tomorrow we're having our freezers inspected. I just bought 3 brand new freezers. They're all going to get inspected tomorrow so that we can sell by the cut. So we've got a whole bunch of meat coming our way, but we also need to clean out our personal freezer, which is a great thing to do at least once a year. What we're going to do is go through that. It is out in our garage. We're going to do all of the projects that are in there. So I actually started this yesterday. And I put all of my pork neck bones. I had 6 packs of pork neck bones, and I put them all in the roaster over here and got those. I cooked them down all night. We'll talk about that a little bit. My next really big freezer cleanout project is lard. I have 8 of these bags of lard here to do today. We are also going to do that in the roaster. I'll kind of cover the general basics of doing lard in the roaster, but I do have a video that I will link in the description that is an in-detail video of doing lard in the roaster. Now, if you do this on the stove top, it can go, number 1, a little bit quicker, and number 2, get more water out of it, so it's more shelf stable. But because we're doing a massive amount, we're going to do ours in the roaster. I refrigerate all my lard anyways, so I'm not super worried about that. We did buy a new refrigerator. We have our kids going in and out of our kitchen refrigerator all the time for the milk dispenser, snacks, yogurts, fruits, veggies, that kind of thing. And so we were finding that our milk wasn't lasting as long as it really should because they're opening and closing the door all the time. Because we're milking every day and we're getting a large quantity of milk, we need to be able to store that somewhere where they're not going in and out. So what we did, we took our refrigerator that had a bottom freezer on it from our kitchen and put it into a room that is going to be turned into a laundry room. It's kind of our pantry at the moment, and that's where all of our milk is going to go, except for the dispenser that's going to go in here, and that gets switched out with milk every 1 to 2 days, depending on how much milk the kids are drinking. And we'll have more of our daily stuff. In this refrigerator, we'll keep all of our bulk eggs, eggs for customers, our milk, our I make yogurt like a gallon at a time, and all of this extra lard. Anything that we have in a large quantity will be kept in the pantry refrigerator and freezer in there. And then this is our new kitchen refrigerator. Let me show it to you. It's kind of cool. So this refrigerator is different because it has a 2-door refrigerator on the top, and then actually half of it is a 2-door freezer on the bottom. And these are split down the middle, so you open just one at a time. And it's all drawers. So we've got this side over here with an ice maker up top, and then we have this freezer over here that's also drawers. And you'll notice that half of this refrigerator is freezer space, which I love because I'm going to be keeping cuts of meat in here that are so much easier to pull out than running out to the garage, and hopefully this will help us eat more homegrown food instead of, you know, those dinners where you realize I forgot to take meat out, because it'll be right here and handy, and we actually pull more stuff out of the freezer than the fridge anyways. And then, like I said, we've got our other fridge for all of our extras and bulk. The refrigerator on this is really nice too. We just had our daughter's party, so most of this is leftovers from that, but we're going to be restocking that as well. I had to buy a new drink dispenser in there for the milk because it's 1 inch shorter than what my dispenser is, and what we use is a drink dispenser that draws off the bottom, and then all that cream, if there's any extra cream, it stays at the top, and so the kids are always getting the skim milk out of the bottom. So those should be coming today. We'll do a fridge restock. I'm going to stock this freezer with all of last year's pork, chicken, anything that's on the older side of things that we're going to try to use up in the coming weeks before we get that whole influx of new things. And then I'm going to organize this down the road with chicken, beef, pork, all the things. But right now we just have a lot of pork. So the majority of what we're going to do today is going to be related to that and finding out what we have left from last year and what we need to use up. My roaster oven going. This has a nice pork broth in it that is going to be canned. We may have a couple other canning projects to do as well, so we'll talk about that. I actually haven't gone through the freezer yet. I'm going to do that with you guys, see what we've got. The lard will go in the fridge, and then we'll have the restock down here, and we'll see what other projects need to be done in order to clear that freezer before we get our own personal pigs back. Last year we kept 2 pigs for ourselves, and we've made it through most of it. The reason I have so much lard is because right before our pigs came back last year, I did lard from the previous year, so I'm kind of a year behind on the lard, and it will last. It's not going to be a problem. This has been frozen. It has absolutely no frostiness to it or anything like that, and it'll be perfectly fine made into rendered lard today, and we'll use it over the next several months. The nice thing is, with 2 pigs, you get a whole lot of this lard, and so we don't always have to reuse it. Like, we'll use it maybe 2 or 3 times for frying, and then we toss it and use new lard because we just have enough of it. We have a good supply of it that we don't have to really reuse it or worry about it going bad. So I guess the next step would be to head out to the garage and take a look in that freezer, see what we have left and what we need to bring in and what other projects we need to put on our list. In the meantime, these are still frozen, so I'm letting these thaw out. I've got 8 bags of them here, and my broth is cooling down, so we will take that out. Since it's been about 24 hours in the roaster, it should be done. Then we'll get the roaster all cleaned up and ready for this batch of lard. Okay, so this is our garage freezer. It is a Criterion. We get these from Menards, and they are fairly cheap. I recommend having a freezer alarm. I can link the one that we have on all of our freezers if you're interested. I'm also going to link these freezer baskets because these are really kind of cool. They have these handles that fold in and you can stack them up. So if you have a chest freezer, these are really handy. But I also use them just to carry frozen food in and out of the house. If you have gone any distance with frozen food, you know that your hands get cold very quickly. Always recommend having something, but these are just super, super handy, and then I can just stack them up on the counter or whatever. So I brought a couple of these out, and we're gonna go ahead, open up the freezer and see what we got. I honestly haven't been in here for a while, so I'm not entirely sure what we're dealing with. One of the things we do, we take all of our extra onion skins. So what I probably did with this was use my slap chopper to make a whole bunch of little containers of onions. This is all the onion skins left. Should have used this in my broth yesterday, but I have a feeling we're going to be making some chicken broth as well, so I'm going to bring this inside, and this is just going to be for broth. Next up, we've got breakfast meat. So it looks like we've got quite a few of these left. I'm sure the kids didn't know that because they would have eaten it up. So I'm going to bring these in. We got 5 packages of that. Get that brought in. This is just a very small chicken. We didn't sell this one last year because of its size. That can get brought in. Perfect. Now I'm getting into chicken parts. So this is another one of those project items that we have a lot of. So I think this one looks like gizzards. There's likely bags of hearts and livers in here as well. And I just got my pet food license, so I can now freeze dry those and sell them as pet food. So that's the plan with all of those. This up here is all strawberry puree to be made into strawberry lemonade. I'm going to make a separate video for that because I think that'll be an interesting canning project. But a lot of this is going to be canned up, so that won't be in here anymore. Let's see. This is more chicken parts. That needs to be freeze dried. There's another older, smaller chicken. This one looks like it's probably a rooster, so we'll go ahead and cook that up. Okay, I've got some chicken wings and chicken parts from last year. Let's see, what do we got here? Chicken breasts. That's like winning the lottery. Sweet. Generally, those are the first things we use up. Here's some thighs. I didn't realize we had so many chicken parts in here. This is good. This is why we try to do this at least once a year, because stuff gets lost and we just don't always know exactly what we have on hand. So we can use up all of last year's stuff and get started on our new supply. More thighs. We love to make an oven fried chicken with our parts and pieces like that. Legs. This is when those drawers in that new freezer come in handy, so we can really sort things out. More wings. All right, we also have frozen blueberries from last year. I have a whole bunch of bags of blueberries from this year, so blueberries that we can use up. Frozen lemon juice. This I will use to make our strawberry lemonade because this is older. I have bottled lemon juice now from Azure, but we will use this with the purees. And I just have a whole bunch of that. This is all from Azure lemons that I juiced. And I didn't really enjoy it all that much, so I probably won't do that again. I'm just gonna buy the bottled lemon juice from now on. I think if you had a juicer, like an electrical juicer, it would be easier, but I did all this by hand. I've got a bunch of chicken broth. If it comes down to it and I still need space, I will thaw all of this out and can it. But I'm also running low on jars, so. Cheesy broccoli soup. Probably find that. Find a day to eat that. Okay. I can also link all of these deli containers. I use them in all the sizes. 1 cup size, we got the pint size and the quart size, and you can use them over and over and over. And I love these. We use them a lot. It's just a little bit easier than freezing in glass. And for a couple of reasons I don't like to use glass. Number one, it can break and cause all kinds of problems and messes. And number two, I don't like to use jars that I'm going to can in for freezing, and it's too difficult for me to keep track of which ones I have frozen stuff in because it can weaken the jar versus what I'm using for canning. So all of my jars are used for canning, and I do not freeze in glass mason jars for that reason. So I know that they haven't been weakened by being in the freezer. So I like the deli containers, to each their own, but big fan. The other thing I have a pretty good quantity of here is the pork sausage from last year. I'm gonna go ahead and try to use some of this up. Around this time last year, I took all of my pork sausage from the previous year's pig and canned it all. So we've been using canned pork sausage rather than frozen, but it's time to use this up. So I'll bring some of these in too. Ooh, this is a good find. The pork summer sausage. Our Amish butcher does these and they are so good. I had no idea we had any left or this would have been gone months ago. So kids will love that for their lunches. Ooh. Bacon ends. And a whole bag of bacon that I did not know we had. I thought I had just brought in my last 2. I got some bacon to eat up. One thing I'm going to use some bacon for, I've got all that pork broth going right now. I don't use pork broth that often. I usually use chicken broth, but I do really like it in a potato soup that you add ham or bacon to, and so we'll probably do some of that this week. We've got a couple of ham steaks left over, not many. Oh, even have a ham roast. These are those diced onions I was talking about. I put them in 1-cup containers. So if I have onions that need to get used up, I'll use my slap chopper and do a whole bunch of little tiny diced onions. And then I can just pop this right out of here into some butter and saute it. So I like to have these on hand, but we might as well use these up because I just got a new 50-pound bag of onions and we're gonna need to be working through that soon. So I'd rather get rid of the old stuff first. So go ahead and bring these in. This is some smoked ham hocks. I have a recipe for this on my channel as well that I will link. That makes a really good soup. Chicken feet. This is another thing we have a ton of. This is from our dual purpose birds that have black feet. I've never made broth out of that. I assume that the black doesn't matter. You generally blanch these and peel them anyways before you make them into broth, but we're gonna have a big chicken feet project because I know I have bags and bags of these. So that will be made into broth. You can probably use that bag of onion skins with that and get some chicken broth made up. This is just an extra 2 cups of tomato sauce. Use that up. Some roasted salsa. That would be a good one to use up. Football games, stuff like that. We got a lot of broth, so I think I might be able to can this up because there's actually a significant amount. I'm almost out of chicken broth, so that wouldn't be a terrible project. I'm gonna bring a couple of these ham steaks in. And now we're mostly left with chicken parts, broth, and a little bit of fruit up here. I'm gonna go stock our freezer, and see how much more room we have left. And then let's go ahead and take care of the pork broth, get the lard going, and then we can start talking about what project we can do next, because those are both big projects for today. So everybody should do a freezer inventory at least once a year. I would advise doing it at least twice a year, but especially if you're buying shares of animals, so shares of pork or beef, because you're gonna have a lot of those cuts that you kind of forget about. This was one of those things, the pork neck bones. I didn't really know what to do with them, and I kind of just kept putting it off, and I had 6 packs of them. What I ended up doing is putting them all in the roaster, topped it all off with water. I put 3 onions in here. I put a whole bunch of carrots and some celery. I did a little bit of salt and then probably about 2 tablespoons of peppercorns, and that's it. And so I'm going to strain all of this off. I can already tell that it's a little bit fatty. When you are canning broth, you don't want it to be too terribly fatty. Leaving a fat cap in there can cause a little bit of issue with seals. I have done it before where I just canned it right away. But a good practice for that is to remove some of the fat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and strain it. We're going to cool it down tomorrow sometime. I will scrape some of that extra fat off. I would save it, except we're doing all the lard, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'll probably feed it to the animals. And then we'll go ahead and can it up after that. So we'll just bring it back up to boiling and can it as you would normally pressure can your broth. The neck bones themselves don't have a ton of meat on them, but they do have some. Maybe I'll peel that off too. I hate to let it go to waste. So after we get all the broth drained off, then I'll work through pulling all that meat off. That would be another good one to put in like a potato soup, or if you have like a vegetable soup and you want to add some meat to it, this easily shreddable pork meat would work really well for that. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this so we get our roaster oven back because we have more projects to do. That made significantly more broth than I was expecting and had a ton of meat on it, which I wasn't expecting. We got all this meat off of those bones. So that's going to make a good couple of meals. This pot here is about a canner load of quarts for me, so I know that that'll be about enough to run a canner load. So this is my leftover. This is what I will make into soup this week, or make into something delicious, and then utilize all that meat up The key to doing lard is low and slow. So we're going to do this in a roaster oven. You can do this on the stove. You can also do it in a crock pot if you have a smaller quantity. You're going to add a little bit of water. For a crock pot, I do about a cup of water. I'm going to do 2 cups of water in this one. You will have to cook this water off. So once you get your lard rendering, you're going to have to take the top off of this and let that water out. Ideally, your lard won't be frozen, but mine is, so we're just going to deal with it. I'm going to go ahead and cut all these packages open, get them put into this roaster, and get the lid put on so you can start melting all of this down. In a crock pot, do this on low. In the roaster, I would say 225. Your lard needs to be cut into chunks. I chunked all of this stuff up before I packaged it last year. If you are getting lard and it is not ground or cut up like that, you're going to want to chop it or put it through a meat grinder. Let's see how many of these I can fit in here. You want to separate out all of the liquid fat from any of the meat bits that are in there. So you're going to do it on a low temperature so that it can melt slowly and not cook those meat bits. That keeps it from getting porky. By melting it, we take out all of the impurities and we will ladle off just the pure fat. And that gives you a really good nutrient-dense cooking oil, especially from these pasture-raised pigs. If you can, you should try to get your lard separated if your butcher will do it. I don't know a lot of butchers that will, but if you can separate the leaf lard, that's the kidney fat, and that is a pure, very clean lard that does not have a porky flavor at all. I would bet these are a couple pounds a piece, so we're probably doing close to, probably doing about 15 to 18 pounds. That stand-up freezer has 2 drawers on the bottom, 1 on each side, and those drawers were both entirely filled with lard. So we're doing 1 drawer today. We'll have to do the other one another day. It's not gonna fit. I do not can this. It is shelf stable if you get all the water and meat bits. I refrigerate mine. I just do in case there's any issue with it. I don't want to lose it all. I've never had it go bad in the fridge ever. So here we go. I'm going to put the lid on this. I'm going to cook this down until it's starting to liquefy, and then I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to let that water cook out of it, and then we'll just start to ladle off the rendered lard once it is ready to go. We're going to get a significant amount out of this. Ended up with 2 gallons of rendered lard. What do you find in your freezer at the end of the year that you forgot to use, or those projects that are just, I'll do it later, and they get stuck in the freezer? What kind of projects do you need to work through to get ready for a good freezer restock? And if you're looking to fill your freezer and you're local to us, we've got beef and pork coming. We can get you hooked up with all the good supplies. Just make sure you reach out. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us there with lots of daily stories and posts and pictures and things going on here on our farm. We appreciate you guys following along. I hope you choose to subscribe. We'd love to have you. I want to say thank you for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.